package in the mail, MSX games from Japan. Collecting without fail, those shoot 'em ups, and that's the plan. He doesn't just collect them, he also codes them too. Join us and we'll go on electric adventures with you.
Hey YouTube, Electric Adventures here with my monthly update for March 2022. The months certainly tick by quickly. Fairly eventful a month. Basically, February I was filling in for my direct boss while he was away. Went back to Vietnam to visit his family, who I hadn't seen for almost a year. And then he decided to retire and not come back. So I've been rather busy. And I'm currently acting in his role and have applied for the position. We'll see what happens. But I've also been doing my old job as well at the same time, so that's made it very difficult and very hectic. They have now allowed me to hire a backfill for my original role, and they only just started last week, so hopefully things will get back to normal. So I really haven't had a lot of time to do much retro gaming. I have done some, and I've got some, and a couple of things have arrived, and I've made videos. I'm pointing in this area here. There's one here that I only just finished the other day. So I don't have a hell of a lot of pickups. Now, also during the month, two of my children, the two children that live with us, caught COVID. And COVID is running rampant down here now that they've opened up all the borders and everything like that. But we're very heavily vaccinated, so it's not putting much strain on the hospitals, and myself and my wife are triple vaccinated. So while we had the kids quarantined in our house and we were quarantined with them, my wife and I actually felt unwell for a bit over a day, but we never tested positive during that time, and there was nothing else for us to get. So I assumed that our triple vaccination status meant that we dealt with the virus. But anyway, hope everybody out there is dealing well. Obviously they keep on getting different variants and things like that, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, everybody's all better. Part of the extended family, my eldest daughter, who was also pregnant, also caught the virus, and as did her little toddler, my grandchild, but they're all better now, so we're through that part at least. Right, I do have a couple of pickups though. So whilst in lockdown, like the day before I got locked down, I picked up a copy of Dune on 4K. Now I did get to see this in the pictures, and I really enjoyed it, and I was very much looking forward to rewatching it again. And dare I say, it is now one of my favourite movies. I've actually watched it twice already since we got this. So once, unfortunately, the daughter couldn't watch it at the same time. She could only hear us watching it because she was quarantined at the other end of the house. So youngest daughter, she absolutely loves the music, as do I, and loves the story, and she's 15, and she's actually trying to read the original book as well. She hasn't been a huge reader so far. She's really just hitting a stride as far as reading is going at the moment, and starting to really get into it. So I'm sure she'll go back to Dune. She's probably made it about 100 or so pages in, and then it got a bit heavy and she's moved on to other things, but I'm sure she'll go back to it. I have since watching this, I've reread the first book in the series and about the second one. Really a striking film, wonderful cinematography, and you know, beautiful effects. I think I haven't actually watched the Oscars from the other day, but apparently it won heaps of awards, deservedly so. Can't wait for the next bit is all I can say, and we'll probably watch it, watch this version again. So very good movie pickup. So whilst we're in lockup, another movie came out on Blu-ray. Did not see this one at the pictures. The one daughter that wasn't infected and all that sort of thing went and bought it at the store and dropped it around to the house. And she got the steelbook version, which I don't normally get, but I don't mind it. And a big fan of the series, so it's The Matrix Resurrections. Now, I did enjoy it. I'm going to say it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You have to be I suppose, really into the series, and not to. So, like, I really like the first movie in the Matrix series, and the other two movies I enjoyed watching them, but I didn't like them anywhere near as much as the first one. This one I probably like more than the two sequels, but obviously still it is nothing can beat the original, because of, you know, all of the concepts it introduced and its style and everything like that. This one probably better harks back to the original style than the two sequels did. And as I said, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the two sequels, but they always, just a bit of, could have been better. And same thing with this, it probably could have been better. I really can see what they were trying to do with it, but it does drag in places and stuff like that, and they didn't quite get the timing and things right, I don't think. But other than that, I enjoyed it as a fan of the series and everything like that. The daughter is interested in watching it and everything, and I'll probably watch it again to see what I've missed. But not rushing back to it. So I suppose that gives a bit of a review. Now, as far as other pickups, the other one is a very physical thing. I got some box protectors for my Super Famicom games. I actually have quite a large Super Famicom collection. So probably the best way to do this is we'll pause for a second, and I'll just go on to I'll turn the camera around, and we'll just have a real quick look over the collection and show these box protectors. I think they came out really good. Right, so on the shelf that's sitting behind the camera, and this is the one that I keep on saying I'm going to rebuild and turn into a new Nintendo era. I'm going to make a much higher shelf and everything like that. But the times in my holidays when I went to do it, there was no wood at the hardware store, which was really, really annoying. And obviously with this new job situation and everything like that, I haven't had time to try and go back. But as you can see, hopefully the games are looking a little shinier. And I've been through and I've just about done a lot. I'm short a few, so I've got to go and get some more. So the box protectors, they fit really well. And clip together and don't have too many obscuring lines. Obviously you can see there's a joint on that side. Pardon me. So there's Puyo. Wrong front. So there's Puyo Puyo, an actually really good fun puzzle game. Lucky enough to have number 2 as well. Over sort of this side, I need to reorganise a little bit. Mostly there's my shooters over here. A few action titles in the middle here, with your Final Fights and Street Fighters and Metroid and Contra. And obviously there's a couple more shooters there. Lots of RPGs over on this side. Donkey Kong Country's absolute classic games on the system, got to have those. And Bonkers Adventure, Mario Kart, and the Mickey games, which are really cool, Star Fox and things like that. So I do have a really good core Super Famicom collection. Some titles I've got loose that I wouldn't mind upgrading to a full one. Like, that's the only Proteus game I have loose. Well, going through it, I discovered I've got this one loose and in a box. So if anyone wants to trade, it's actually a really good fun shoot 'em up if you like things like Galaxian and Galaga, more Galaga and Galaga 88. Good fun shooter. And on the right hand side there's some of my, I've got a few PAL Super Nintendo game and a couple of US Super Nintendo games as well, but most of my collection is Super Famicom. But these box protectors came out really well. It was actually, if you want to laugh at me, is I got a little way through before I realised that each box protector actually came with plastic wrap over it, and it's done so well that you can't actually tell. Now I think I've taken that one off there, and probably the titles over this side, there's still some where I haven't realised, and it's got this plastic wrap over it. But this one, no, I've taken it off that one. But there will be some there that I have missed, and you can't, I mean, unless there was a bubble, you can't actually notice the difference. Now, I'm leaning over the camera, I can't put that back in. I'll fix that in a minute. There we go. We'll stand it out like that, which is excellent cover anyway. Yeah, it's actually really nice to protect the games, and obviously some of them, you know, they're not cheap to buy, these ones, especially nowadays, so it's good to protect them so the sun doesn't get to them, and it stops them from being crushed and things like that. But next step is, yes, I keep on saying it, I need to rebuild this section, make it taller and turn it into my Nintendo section. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side of the room where the MSX stuff is. And there's Famicom games there, they'll move over here. Nintendo 64 in a different part of the game room, all of that will come together over here. And NES games as well. And that'll give more room for the MSX collection, which has grown quite considerably. And we'll get things a little bit more tidied up and neater and displayed better, and also make the games last longer. So very pleased to get those, and as I'm filming it I have some more box protectors, but I'll talk about them next month. Alright, back round to me. Okay, back round this way. So once again, no more pickups, although I have received some things, but I'm making videos about those, so I'll do specific videos about them. And one really cool item from our MSX systems. Also on the homebrew side, so I've been really busy at work. I've been coming home pretty much exhausted, and then still having to do work after that, because the organisation I work for is part of a European organisation, and of course you've got time zone differences. So before, when I was just doing my primary job, if I had late meetings, I'd take some time off the next day or later on in the week and things like that. But at the moment, doing the two jobs, I haven't been doing either. So pretty much Monday is a 12-hour day at the moment, all the way through. And then you get interrupted several other times. I try and take a bit of extra time off on Fridays, but it just hasn't worked. I just haven't been able to leave half the time. It happens when you're managing stuff. You need to be there when they need you. So anyway, I have done a couple little things. So I have done some changes to my free tool that I give away for editing sprites and characters. Person contacted me and made a very good suggestion, which was to enable you to select a background colour when editing sprites, because obviously by default it was just like a really light colour. But if you're making a space game, of course, it'd be nice to see the colours that you're selecting on a black background. So you can now select the background that's used for previewing and working on the sprite shape, so you can get a better idea of how the colours are going together. And it's a really good suggestion. It didn't take me too long to do, and it is put in there and release that out. So go to my website. On the front page is a link to the tool, and I'll try to put some pictures up here when I'm talking. Apart from that, I haven't done a lot of homebrew development at all. The only other thing I have done some more work on, so the next version of my book, so I did programming games for the ColecoVision and Adam in assembler, which is a complete guide to getting started and writing a game and getting all the tools together, and just some of the concept of how to write a simple game. But also it came with a comprehensive guide to the ColecoVision BIOS, and a bit of an intro guide to the Adam that was suggested to be added late, and it would have made the book too big if I went overboard on that part. And I have previously said I've started work on the MSX version of that book, but recent circumstances in Europe and the fact that some parts of the community worried about disappearing because of certain events that are happening in Europe, I have switched tracks back to my original system, which is the original Spectravideo, because I think it's really important to get this documentation that was never available for the system done. So the next book that will be released will be programming games for the Spectravideo SV318-328 in assembler, and it will come with a complete BIOS guide. So previously all we've had is like addresses and a name of each of the functions, and if we're lucky a description, and usually when that function matched something that was in the MSX BIOS, and not much else. No parameters or how you use that function and what context. So for every single BIOS function, I'm going through the source code of the BIOS and working out the calling parameters and writing a small example of how to use that function. And most important, which is the chapter that I finished, is the chapter on bank switching in the original Spectravideo, something that was not documented very well at all. What's one of the things they changed so the original Spectravideo is used as the base design for the MSX, but they made two key changes. One change was the Spectravideo had a cartridge port, a game cartridge port, and an expansion port in the back, and they were different pinouts. For MSX they merged those two, so the cartridge port and the expansion port were the same, and usually most machines came with two. They also improved the bank switching. So a Z80, being an 8-bit processor, can only access 64K of RAM-ROM at any one time. So the MSX allows you to switch in basically 16K sections, and in the end you end up having a 4 meg memory space with the amount of switching and banks and sub-banks that you can do. Now the original Spectravideo did have a bank switching scheme, but it was only in 32K banks. As a point of interesting, it was probably only coincidence, because they brought out a model with only 16K of RAM. They needed ability to change what was in the upper two banks, which is really handy. So originally it was, I may put a little diagram up here when I'm talking about this. So you had 4 potential slots, and each slot had 2 layers, either the lower slot or the upper part of the slot. The lower slot is the lower 32K of memory, and the upper slot is the upper 32K of memory. So most of the time you've got a 32K ROM in the lower 32K, and then you can put various RAM banks in the top. But you can also switch it so you can have RAM in all of them. But then one of the slots is the cartridge port. So if you put a game in there, and say it's a 64K ROM, if the machine booted up with that, it would have, and it enabled all 64K ROM at once, you'd have no RAM. Well, of course you can do 32K, and then you can do RAM up in the top bank, and that's how most people thought it worked. And obviously accessing the upper 32K of the cartridge is very difficult, especially if you're running on a 318, which only has 16K in the upper area, or at least with a 328 you know you've got some RAM down the bottom that you can go and put some code into, because otherwise if you've got both 64K, both 32K banks of ROM in the cartridge selected, you've got no RAM active at all, so you can't do any calls that need the stacks, or call needs to return, so it needs the stack. So it makes programming very difficult. But luckily, probably because of the Spectravideo 318, you can split the top bank only as far as the cartridge is concerned. So there's an extra 2 bits in the cartridge slot selector that allow you to say which of the top 2 16K parts of the cartridge are enabled. So it's very easy to have 48K of cartridge and still have that top 16K of RAM. And if you know you're on a 328, you can enable full 64K of RAM and still have a little bit of RAM accessible as well. Or just that top 16K, maybe you just copy it into video memory, which is the only way you could do something without any RAM enabled. But it allows much more possibilities than thought possible before. Now the difficulty of this is the emulation in Blue MSX does not understand this, because it obviously needs correcting. And we actually hark back to a conversation on a forum group about 6 or 7 years ago, where we all basically worked this out. But I do need to do some, I'm sure I've got it right now, and I believe a gentleman named Tobias, who has disappeared for the last 5 years, did make changes to OpenMSX, and I'm going to test all of the stuff on that and see if it makes any difference. Otherwise, I'll have to write it onto a ROM and do a physical test on a ROM on a machine. But I will do that before the book comes out. So I want to be very thorough, and I want this to be the definitive guide of the machine before all of the people who've done hard work looking at it potentially disappear. As Tobias has for the last 5 years. I don't know what has happened to that nice gentleman. Alright, so as you can see, I'm reasonably passionate about writing this stuff and supporting especially basically the first machine that I learnt how to properly program on. It wasn't my first computer. I did have a TI-99-4, not a 4A, before that. But I was a bit limited on that, and the Spectravideo 3.8 was where I really sunk my teeth in and got into programming proper. So it holds a lot of sentimental value for me, and I want to support the community. So with this book, I have under no impression that I'll sell lots of copies of it. I don't care. I just want the book out there so people have that information. I'll be happy to sell even 10 copies, doesn't matter. And of course, then doing the MSX book after that will be a lot easier because the similarities are very, very, very similar. So work on this is work on the MSX one, if you think about it. Same graphics chip, same CPU, and same sound chip as well. So all same things. Alright, so once again, not a lot of pickups and things like that. I have been playing some games, mostly retro stuff. Really haven't touched the modern stuff at all, but you never know, might get back into that soon. Alright, I'm Electric Adventures. Hope everybody out there is safe and well and enjoying their retro and modern games, and I'll catch you next time.